rise and join me in welcoming Rosario Dawson, our Maverick Spirit Award recipient. Just a word about the award. It was created by a Silicon Valley artist, Carlos Perez. The lightning bolt of inspiration and innovation hits this film canister of creativity. Rosario, you definitely got game. We're very proud and honored to give you this award.
Thank you. I like the lightning bolt because it's also sort of Shazam-y. Or am I just automatically going into nerd alert right now?
I'm worried that you need to be here because there's a camera right there, so he can see you.
Hey.
Do you want to? Yeah, you want to switch? Let's switch. Oh. Yeah, you gotta be, right? All right, okay. Rosario, sweet thing for coming up and visiting us and letting us celebrate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, I feel like
Trailblazer.
It's very, yeah.
No, this is awesome. This is a big
the
deal.
Maverick.
This is such a new world. If I could just take a picture of all of you, all the cameras and the cell phones. It's hilarious.
So let's start at the beginning. Yeah?
Yes.
Some of these audience members know this, but was your first acting experience really the result of being discovered on a stoop outside your home? Tell us the story of the very beginning.
No, that would be my first acting experience.
You were discovered.
Yes, I'm just wondering because I had done some other videos, but they were all documentary stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I had done a gig with Sesame Street. I don't know if anyone saw it. You know, they do those videos where, you know, they're showing you making crayons or a kid in a dance class or something like that. And they did one where it was in our community garden in New York. And they had a woman who lived in my building was dating a cameraman on Sesame Street. And she said, I'll pay you $20 if you'll come and mind the children because we're filming these little kids. And they're going to be running around and we're not going to always have them on camera, so will you help out? So I got paid $20 to babysit these kids. And then I ended up on camera and interviewing and doing voiceover work. And that's still my favorite thing to get discovered from these days. It's like every once in a while, because you know the Sesame Street, they just play it over and over again. Every once in a while, a little kid will be like, "You with Sesame Street?" And I'm like, "Yes," because of course, you know, I was like 10 or 11 when I did it. There's no like, and featuring Rosario Dawson. So you just got to be in the know, obviously. So now you guys know. But yeah, my first, you know, my brother had done a short film, and I was around a lot of creatives growing up, and I remember when I was little, anytime a limo would go by, my best friend Rosalie and I we'd in the middle of whatever conversation we were in, we'd stop and go, "Smile and get discovered." I was like, the limo went by. And then, you know, Michael Jackson wouldn't come out and tell us to be in his new music video or something. And so we'd keep going along in our way. But you never knew. And I remember they were shooting this commercial on the block, and my dad said, "Go downstairs and get discovered," because they're doing, they're going to have, he said, "I overheard them, they're going to need dancers, and you dance, and you love dancing, you're always dancing. Go downstairs and get discovered." And I was like, okay. And there was some guy who worked on the crew who wore the same outfit for 3 days straight in the summer, which is disgusting. But I thought he was really hot because I was a teenager. And because I stood there sort of like pining after him in my weird little young teenager way, I ended up being downstairs and actually getting discovered. And Harmony and Larry came up to me, and they were scouting for locations for kids. And they came up to me on my stoop. I immediately called for my dad. It's weird, people are talking to me and talking about they're making a movie.
Right, smart girl.
And but you know, my dad pedaled me over on his bicycle. He took his T-shirt off and put it on the bar and pedaled me over to Broadway. And I read the script, and it was legitimate. And they had a production office, and I auditioned, and I got the role. And this summer is a 20-year anniversary, actually, for kids coming up.
That is fabulous. That's great.
Crazy.
Are you going to do something special for the anniversary? Are they doing anything? No?
No.
Okay. Was that a good experience? I mean, were you hooked right away?
It was an amazing experience. You don't realize afterwards, you know, and being on a lot of low budget and small little indie films as well as bigger stuff, it really was for an indie film, it was really good. You know, we had a trailer, we had like hair and makeup.
Yeah.
Like there were definitely some films I shot over the years where we were stealing shots. Sidewalks of New York, including Ed Burns' film. We filmed just before 9/11, and that's a movie that came out. I shot that film, and then I shot Men in Black 2, and every shot in Men in Black 2 had the World Trade Center in it. Because at the end of the movie, originally in the original script, the Twin Towers were supposed to flash and make the whole city forget, because they were going to see this alien situation, which is what you saw at the end, but they switched it up and changed it completely. And that made me really sad watching the film that they'd taken it out. I understood why they did it, but it was weird because I knew all the shots that it was supposed to be in. But then Sidewalks came out, and I thought that was really amazing, and it was crazy how dated it felt immediately. There's just this one scene where you see, you know, they're walking and the towers are in the distance, and you're just really jolted. And I've had that experience with a couple of films now with New York, because, you know, obviously with 25th Hour was one of the first films to really have that be a part of the story at all. And he filmed Ground Zero, and it was really intense. But it's you know, I feel like so much of watching all of these things is very New York centric.
Yeah, that's your
Such a New
heart's
Yorker.
there. You are.
Such
It's
a New Yorker.
beautiful.
For someone who's lived in LA for 9 years.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's such a weird thing, how you can live and move to California. You don't call yourself a Californian.
Right,
I used to live here. I went to San Francisco when I was a
Right.
kid. I went to
Right.
John Muir Elementary. Like, I love John Muir Woods, yo, Redwood, woo woo. Webster Street, yeah. You know, I got footage of me playing in Dolores Park, and, you know, but it's interesting, like, you know, people move to New York, and within a day, they're like, I'm a New Yorker, yo. Look at my Metro card, and like, I've lived in LA for 9 years, and I'm still like, New Yorker, yeah.
So your family was supportive from the get-go? I mean, that you come from a family of artists. Different. I mean, your mom wrote and sang.
My mom sings and she writes songs, and she's also a plumber and does electrical and oversees construction.
Amazing.
So my mom's the person who begged for a chest piercing for Mother's Day and then went and got it infected putting up drywall. That's my family. We live in Home Depot, basically. I literally went to IKEA recently and got like a shelving thing, and it was all prefab thing, and you could put this all. I was amazed. My friend was like, yeah, they've been doing that for years. I'm like, because we always go to Home Depot and make it from scratch. Like, my family's, we're like caveman about it. And I was really impressed. But anyway, so yes, my uncle's a comic book artist, and my dad had done some acting, and my grandmother on my dad's side is a photographer and a poet and a writer, and she's on the board of the Native Indian Community House. And my grandmother on my mom's side was also a poet. And so I had a lot of, I grew up around a lot of struggling artists, so I appreciated the opportunity when it came up. And I remember when I read the script, I was, you know, Harmony wrote it at 19 in 2 weeks, and it's based off of all his friends' situations. So it's very intense, and what kids are up to when their parents aren't looking. And I remember my parents, I was 15 when I filmed the movie. I just turned 15. And the only thing that my parents said I could not, that it was like a deal breaker, was I wasn't allowed to smoke.
Interesting.
They didn't change one line. They read the script, mind you. They knew exactly what I was getting into, but which they were completely fine, but they were like, but you are actually a teenager. We're not having you smoking. That's actually bad parenting. But you can say and do all of that stuff. That's fine. Because we know that's not you, Rosario. You're a tutor.
That's
and
great.
You know, I tutored pre-calculus and calculus at the Cooper Union. I took a civil engineering course at Columbia University over the summer. Like, they were like, you're fine. We're not worried about you. You're good. Just don't smoke.
Yeah.
And it's like haters. And it's really remarkable, because it's really startling, you know, when you watch. I still get people to this day who say, you know, I watched this movie with my kids. I watched it as a kid then, and it scared me straight. And I'm sitting down and watching it with my kids, and even though it's a very, you know, we use a payphone in the movie.
Yeah.
It's an old movie. It's very old New York in that sense, but it's still, because there's no cell phones in it, or cell phones at that time would have been, it doesn't feel dated in that sense. It's still, you know, it's a very critical issue kind of film, and it sort of, you just kind of disappear into it, because it doesn't really work now as an idea. Someone trying to find someone all day, right now you just kind of look them up on Instagram and see where their geo placement is, and you'd go, they're at the park. You know, like it's
Exactly.
just the premise
so
doesn't
true.
really work today. But
Right.
then it was, you know,
Yeah.
it was
So
amazing.
your family's always been sort of your rock?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. They're strange bees, you know, and, you know, I very much, you know, I grew up in a squat in the Lower East Side, which was an abandoned building. We moved in, it didn't have any water, heat, or electricity. My family's very tenacious, and so I just grew up with that idea. I grew up around a lot of advocates and activists and starving artists. That's why I even had the audacity to audition for Rent, even though 6 out of the 8 originals in the cast and the only other newbie in it had gone to Juilliard.
You were
I was
phenomenal.
like, I sing in my shower.
You were phenomenal
But
in it.
I played someone I really knew. You know, that was the community I grew up in. That was literally my life. Like, I remember being so nervous and scared going into that audition because I was like, I really have no right to be coming in here in the technical sort of realm, but this is my life. Like, I feel so connected to this, and I'd feel really wrong if I didn't try, because I know how important this is, and I really feel, I'm Mimi.
Yeah.
Like, I remember just being, I'm Mimi, and this has to happen, and
Did you have to fight for that role? Was it an intense audition process? I mean, was there a lot of competition?
there was a
must
lot
have
of
been.
competition. It had
Yeah.
been coming and going for a while, and Spike was going to direct it for a while.
Oh, interesting.
But I remember going in, and there's a video on YouTube of me, and I knew every word perfectly, but I was so nervous. I'm singing Out Tonight, holding onto the paper. Like, it's so sad, but I'm like, Out Tonight. And I'm like, estrés, like, I can do this for real, hire me. I was so excited. It was such a good experience, but it was that same thing, though, like, you know, just that raw, like the stories that I grew up with, and feeling like this is so insane that this experience I had growing up across the street from a crack house and in the heroin, crack, HIV/AIDS epidemic in the Lower East Side during police riots, and you know, change the atmosphere with homeless and clearing out the parks, like so much transition in New York, and to have experienced so much of it firsthand and then read scripts and have an opportunity to tell those stories has been so powerful and revealing and special, because it's in many ways, from where I come, our stories aren't celebrated, and they're not ones that are supposed to be amplified in that way and resonate in that way and be told in that way. And something like Rent was exactly that. It's like going, you're gonna make a powerful story about the people I grew up with, and it's okay that they're poor, and that they're homeless, and that they're squatters, and that they're transgendered, and that they're, you know, drug addicts, and that they're not perfect, but that there's still so much meaning to be derived from it. And I'm just, my only regret for that entire project was that I never got to meet Jonathan Larson, because I would have really loved to have known the man who created that work.
Yeah. Are any more musicals in your future? I mean,
hope so.
you have a beautiful voice.
Thank
yeah?
you. I'd love that.
Yeah.
That'd be so fun.
Yeah.
To be singing and dancing all day, and
Right.
that's what you're doing for a job. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of times I was caught in my living room vacuuming the same spot over and over again while I was trying to, like, music video in my mind, Celine Dion moment, like I could do a perfect triple axel on the ice, like in my mind's eye, you know,
Right.
like all of that stuff, and you're in it, and then the lights come on and your parents walk in, your heart jumps out of your chest, and you're like, oh God, my fantasy has now been revealed. I'm just gonna go back to vacuuming. And then I have that, I feel like I'm doing that, I'm on set and I'm having this like I'm in it moment, and they're like going, no, keep going. And you're like, oh wait, this is really happening. This is actually my life now. This is amazing. How remarkable. What a gift, truly.
A gift. And I mean, you obviously, the play and everything I see with you, where did the love of acting come from? Is it really just that desire to play and explore and...
Narcissism. Was a precocious child. No, could you imagine? No.
Because you're so, you have so many talents, so it's just, I mean, is it just...
I grew up around really very talented people who had really normal jobs and who you would never know could do the things that they could do. I love stupid human tricks personally, because I take it to that level as well. Like, my friend can touch her elbows in the front. Try it. It's really hard. It's not going to happen. She's special. Don't be jealous. And I love that. I really feel like everybody's got something. If it's flipping your eyelids and touching your tongue to your nose, if it's got incredible balance and juggling, if it's fire dancing, if it's jumping out of planes, if it's doing, people's taxes for a living. Could you imagine? Jesus. I'm constantly amazed by people and the gifts that they find in themselves and their strengths and their passions and what kind of lights them up and gets them excited. And it's just, go do that, And I've been around so many people who had that in multiple facets, and I remember growing up with my mom, and she got gestational diabetes when she was pregnant with me. So she dropped out of high school when she was 16, out of Lincoln High School, actually, where I ended up filming 18 years later. Excuse me, He Got Game, because my character came from Lincoln High School. So we filmed in Coney Island, where I was born, in Lincoln High School, where my mom and my uncles had gone to school. And she dropped out and got her GED, her good enough diploma, she calls it. And I grappled with so many years from her feeling, her ups and downs of feeling like she wasn't doing enough or achieving enough, or maybe she was letting us down because she had so many different kinds of jobs. And I remember just talking to her like, Mom, you're Wonder Woman. Like, you could literally put up a retaining wall and cook lasagna for 200 people. You're dope. You're kind of amazing. You're Superwoman. Don't stress. And now we're in a place, especially what gets me so excited is with both Latino and other organizations and things that I work with, and just young people in general, is that these millennials, or whatever term you're using for the young people, I remember being myself, just completely open to everything. And there's not this idea of, okay, I'll pick one cause, or I'll, go down one avenue that I'll try to pursue for success. It's going, I sing and I dance and I write and I'm a poet and I'm also really good at math and I love science and I want to be a doctor and a teacher and I also want to be a volunteer and I want to do a clothing line and sure, why not? I just think that that's so remarkable, people tapping into, and obviously you have to excel at something or not, because plenty of people who don't. But I think that that's a beautiful thing to just go out there and engage. And that's the one thing I definitely grew up around, to people with all different levels of success or none, just really being engaged and showing up every day in whatever capacity that they could. And I'm really inspired by that, and I feel the need to do that as much as possible and appreciate the journey along the way.
Yeah. So you've never said, I'm done with acting, or thought maybe you'll walk away?
Every day. The end. That's it. I retired. I'm done.
Yeah.
No, especially after Give Me Shelter and putting on enamel on my teeth. And I remember that was, in New York, you know how to do the crack walk and the heroin lean, at a really early age, because you see it on every corner. And I remember I was so excited. I got this role in Give Me Shelter. My manager represents both Vanessa Hudgens and I, and we were all on a plane to Cannes together. And he leans over and he passes me his phone. He goes, there's this scene, this movie Vanessa's doing, and her mom is this drug addict. And, it's a kind of cameo, but I think, maybe that'd be really fun for you two to work together. And I love Vanessa. I was like, oh, that'd be so fun. So I didn't even read the script. I kind of was I read the scene and I was like, oh, cool, crazy scene. Starts off the movie. Her mother's attacking her. She's clearly a drug addict. It's horrible. And it launches off the whole thing. Okay, cool. So I show up, do that scene. Motel in New Jersey. I come back into my room. They put my clothes on a metal chair because they're like, there might be bed bugs here. I'm like, I'm running around barefoot in this scene. That's gross. It's so not cool. This is not fake movie dirt, is it? This is real. Okay. And I remember doing this thing, and I kept all of the makeup on. I had this enamel on my teeth. I looked really deteriorated in veins, and I had done similar for Mimi in Rent. And I showed up, and my brother, 6'5", cool New Yorker, scared of bugs, but otherwise really tough. And he was really disturbed looking at me, and my whole family was really disturbed. It was sort of like bizarro Rosario, I guess, and that idea of what if I had become a crazy drug addict? instead of an actor,
That I
or
find
a
hard
drug
to
addict and
believe.
an actor, because that could also happen. But like they just were really disturbed by that. Like did not like seeing me in this sort of taken down stage. And then I remember they were like, okay, there's more, and I was like, what do you mean? Oh, let me read the script. And there's more scenes. I got to do more of this. Jesus. And then I remember when we filmed it, after it was done, they added an extra scene, and I had to go back into it, and it was so hard. I remember the next day after I was in the shower washing my face and I was like grimacing, and I realized I'd been frowning for 24 hours. Like this person who just had collapsed into herself, she refused to look in the mirror and admit what she had done and the choices she had made. And I felt such compassion for her, and it was so hard. And I just was so grateful, again, because it was just like I grew up in New York in the Lower East Side during this epidemic. My uncle was a really bad heroin addict and did not end up raising his children. He was in a great band, so he ended up just falling apart. Madonna used to be their go-go dancer. I mean, super promising. And everything went down. And I've had that so close within my own family to see that. And then to portray this character and get an insight into him in a different way than I'd had before, because I'd always just been like, oh, what a jerk. He'd done these drugs, and now he was not there for his children, and he was not showing up for his wife, and I helped to raise their kids and babysat all the time and was there for his wife, and had to grow up myself in a big way because I was having these adult conversations. And I remember just having such a perspective on it. And it's just so interesting how life can do that for you. You have so many examples, and you're like, this is fact, this is what is real, this is the way to look at this. And then I play this character in this thing that was I wasn't even thinking about, and it suddenly just is this challenge that comes up to your face, and you realize, oh my God, how difficult that is for every one of us to admit when we're wrong, just in basic little things. Like, no, I put it there versus over there. Like simple little things that we refuse to admit to, let alone making catastrophic choices that make it really hard to look in the mirror, and where it's easier for you to get your fix than for you to address your problems. And I just remember just feeling really amazed at how special a gift it is, because I wasn't expecting to go into acting, which is, I know this is a roundabout way getting back to your question. I wasn't expecting to go into acting, but it found me, and it's been such an education, and it makes me appreciate so much in life, because someone could throw a rock at my head, and everything that I hold to be dear and true to myself and my being, and just be gone. It just, a second, suddenly I'm just drooling on myself. It's really, we're so fragile, we're so vulnerable. And to have that opportunity to recognize that as my job, that's my job, is to take on trying on other people, putting myself into other people's shoes, and appreciating every day when I go back into my own world, has just been remarkable. And I hope that that's what I get to share with other people. Because I know it seems like I look like a schizophrenic in all these different crazy roles that I take on. And it is as arbitrary as it seems sometimes as to why are you doing that role and that one. It's just, well, I like Rob Zombie. And I wanted to go to Morocco. That's it. That's why. That's
Do you have a criteria, or do you just kind of go, you know what, I want to do something very different from the last thing? Or do you try and balance the studio films with a certain number of indie films? Do you kind of...
I'd love to be able to do that, mastermind. To be
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do 3 big tentpole movies this summer, and then I'll go and do no.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting being an actor, because you are subject to so much of what's happening. The script has to be written, the director has to be attached, the money has to be there. I mean, you can come in at different levels of it, and I've definitely shown up at different parts of projects and either helped to fundraise or do whatever for it. But it still has to, it's an ensemble experience. It's really, you work with everyone. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've gotten more into producing, and I'm interested more in writing and developing more, just because it's hard to sit around and kind of wait to tell a story, because you're waiting for all the other parts to fit in. Sometimes you have to help to manifest that story. And there's a lot of stories that I want to tell that I'm not necessarily the right person to portray those stories, like I'm not necessarily.
What about
that.
directing?
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to get more
I can see you as
into.
being an incredible director.
It's because I'm bossy.
No, because you're smart. Because you're so smart
I
and
can
capable.
say action. No, I've directed a couple readings of things, and I really like producing, and I could absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things I definitely felt. One of the things, going back to you, Trailblazer.
Not back to me. This is your time.
Trailblazer. No. Going back to you, one of the things, like yesterday I got an award, a Nobel Award, and they actually had on the step and repeat, Ask Her More.
Oh, yay.
And I really loved that, the not buying it, hashtag Ask Her More, really pushing. Because this year was an interesting year, hitting that 20-year mark last summer for acting, but this is 20-year anniversary for the film. And had Top 5 come out, and there was so much energy and press and things, and it was just sort of like, I remember I did all of these big interviews, and I had done Charlie Rose, which I'd never done before, and I was super excited about it, and it was really disappointing actually, because it wasn't what I had expected, and I thought it was going to be something more like, exactly, I remember when I saw your Ask Her More thing, there was a couple things that came out, like this New York Times interview, and I just was like, oh, these are going to be these like great, I've been acting for so long, like I'm not expecting them to want to do like a whole talk about, but I feel like I'm bursting at the seams. I'm feeling really nostalgic, and I'd love to talk about what that was like with Oliver Stone and Quentin Tarantino and Danny Boyle and just I've had these amazing experiences, and I just was like, wow, and Top 5, and it's out, and and it's 20 years, like it's going to be so great, and here's Charlie Rose, it's going to be on, and it just wasn't. And it was, and I'm just doing this press, and it just wasn't, and I'm like, and then you came out with the hashtag Ask Her More, and I'm like, please ask her more. It doesn't even have to be me, but I'm so sad and tired of going down these red carpets, and it's just like, I'm going to ask about this one thing, and then ask about your children, and then that's it. That's all I have for you. And it's like, well, I'd never really noticed it until this moment. Like, that's why tonight really meant a lot. Really means a lot that you're getting this award, an award tonight as well. But to get this Maverick Award, because it makes, and I think of Maverick, I think of my mom, I think of my grandmother, I think of Maya Angelou, like I think of like really remarkable people, and this award that you've given to other people, and it just really touched me, and I just felt really grateful, because maybe it's not going to happen on Charlie Rose, and it's not going to happen with the New York Times, and it's not going to happen with these different things that you expect them to do. Right. I'm like, I played a journalist, and I did a job, and you just did. I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your job, but I just read this article, and it feels like you dialed it in. I'm just saying. If I were to do that in my job, it doesn't work, But I feel like I see that sometimes, and it never really bothered me up until this year. Yeah. And this year, it made sense. I guess it's because it's the 20-year anniversary, and it just felt like it's times now, and and I'm not that person of being like. And I hate that actually for women especially. It feels like you're supposed to be so humble. You're never supposed to like whatever. But I'm like, if I was a guy, I'd feel really proud of the fact that I'm taking care of my family. I'm providing. I'm taking care of education. I'm doing I feel proud. Like I did feel proud. Yeah. And so I don't even know how that totally came up, but I just want to say thank you, because it really does mean a lot. And I don't get a lot of actual acting awards. I tend to get a lot of activism awards, as you know.
Because but it's rare, isn't it?
Is.
I mean, you inspire.
To take that moment and reflect and.
Yeah, and I mean, I was talking to Reese Witherspoon about this. The industry remains hard for women and continues to kind of limit our value, right? And so you're such an anomaly, because you're so intelligent and you're so committed to. Let's talk about the issues. Voto Latino. I mean, you've been with V-Day and forever. Scenarios USA, I've just learned about, which is so cool. I mean, you've been championing environmental issues, domestic violence issues. You've been behind everything. And you're a leader, you're an activist, you're an advocate. And it's almost like, that's too much. Let's just put her in this box and keep her an actress. It's really, I mean, that's
which I get. I understand. It's a lot. I can see people do the space look. It's actually the reason why I'm creating, and I know, and I've talked to you a little bit about it, but creating another foundation, people are like, what are you doing? But I'm specific, this is it. I'm done after this. All of Us Foundation is the umbrella organization for all of the other organizations. And I'm so excited about that, because I'm trying to be more efficient and streamlined. But it is that thing, because I'll talk to someone and I'll identify someone, say, as a volunteer or a funder or something. And I'll just start going off, and I'm like, oh, great. So, yeah, so you want to give back. That's awesome. So what are you into? Children? Okay, so I'm on the board of the Lower East Side Girls Club. Oh, no, you don't want just girls. Okay, well, that's great, because I have Operation USA. Oh, no, you don't want to do international relief work? How about, well, VDA, does anti-violence, and it's really great. But if you're more interested in the environment, you could go a Global Green, but then the Environmental Media Association is doing great work, too. And people look at me like, stop talking, right?
They're just in awe.
But I've just been doing it for so long. I grew up, my first campaign ever, actually, that I remember doing, that was my campaign that I really worked on, was in San Francisco when I was 10 to try to save trees.
Really?
This is back when Al Sharpton still wore tracksuits. And I went to my first Gay Day parade, too. I remember that around that same exact time, which was a revelation. And I think my mom was pushing us around in a cart, like a shopping cart, and we were making posters to try to save trees. My heart was in the right
At
place.
10.
I wasn't getting the tree paper. I wasn't all connecting just yet, but my heart was in the right place. But that was like, I was always encouraged since I was really little that even as a young person, that passion and that wanting to help or be compassionate or empathetic or generous, that was a good thing and something to kind of, not just like, hey, be quiet and kids are supposed to be seen, not heard, but like participate. Yeah. Well, what does that look like to you? And so you see the problem here. How do you want to fix it? Well, let's go and do that. Let's go do something. Let's hand out posters today. Like what an amazing thing that is. And I still feel that encouraged. And that's what makes me very excited, even more so, and starting something like the All of Us Foundation, because it's like finally what I was actually, going back to what my mom, taking her after my grandmother died, I took her to Sierra Leone. She'd always wanted to go to Africa, and I took her to Sierra Leone. And it was a really impactful experience because she'd lost her mom. And that's a real deal, because my grandmother passed, she had a blood clot. It wasn't like she was ill. She was a very vivacious, tremendous woman, and suddenly just gone. And we're all very sorry, but at the same time, we're suddenly in this place where they had experienced a terrible civil war. And you're talking to anyone there pretty much, and they're going, oh, I'm so sorry about your mom. My whole family was butchered, and I spent years living in the bush, and this is my brother, but we met there and we took care of each other, but we're brothers now because we don't have any other family. And they're not saying it asking for any sympathy, and they're not challenging what they've, it's not comparing stress it's just reality. It's just going, that happened. It happened. And it sucks, and I'm sorry. And so now what are we going to do? And just being in that growth. And I remember it was such an amazing experience for my mom, because there she was, and she was in this serious mourning, and all of a sudden she was overseeing construction. She was working at all the different organizations that I work at. So she was working at Well Body Alliance and putting in their, from night, I think they had like 10 years worth of paperwork they hadn't put online, that she put online and computerized. And, she was just working at the HIV/AIDS clinic, and she's just amazing. She used to work at Housing Works. She used to work at Women's Inc. here in San Francisco. Like I grew up with her as an activist and an advocate. So it just made, suddenly it all came to fruition. She felt so empowered. My mom was like, all of these years of experience that seems so fractured and all over the place actually comes together in a meaningful way. And it reminds me a lot of what Steve Jobs said. It's like you're moving along in your life, and there's all these different dots. And if you stop sometimes in the middle of it and you try to connect them, it's just jumbled. It doesn't make any sense. But when you keep it moving, eventually you look back and you connect those dots, and there's a really phenomenal picture that is created. And it might seem like those things are really all off base, but it does come together at some point. And I feel really grateful with where all the work that I've done with all these different organizations, that I didn't listen to people and they said, you just got to pick one. Because now we're at this place where it's not just something that people do on the side, and these causes that people had. And there are big people, Harry Belafonte and Elizabeth Taylor with AMFAR. There were people who had these big, huge organizations, but in general, still kind of was siloed. Yeah. And a lot of people did their work and giving as a side thing. And now it's become something that's just a normal part of everybody's work and day. And it's not like you have to pick one thing, but that you can do all of it. Yeah. And I'm really excited about that, because I feel in that same place with my mom, where it's like all of these organizations, all of these things, all these, Amnesty International, this and that. And like, why do I know so much about rape kits that are not being looked into? And why do I know so much about fistula and dysentery and all of the from the different organizations that I've worked with? Why do I know so much about passing out needles and how important, why do I know so much about from all these different organizations that I've worked with? What do I know about? Because I'm supposed to have the All of Us Foundation. Because I was supposed to get to this place where I can start connecting. Because what I just really see is happening is that now we're past this point where it's a trendy thing to have an organization.
Right.
It's actually a given. And it's you doing misrepresentation and then going, but that's not where I'm stopping.
Right,
right. This has more of a life beyond that. It's going to be the mask we live in, and going, no, we're looking at boys too. Don't get all crazy. This is important. We got to look at all of it.
Yeah.
And let's be thoughtful about, if you're really meaning to take care of these issues, let's step back and look at all the different working parts with it and really see how it goes. Because you can't just be a feminist and be a woman. Right. Men are feminists too. You can't be just a humanist. You can't just be about pets or this, that. Like, everybody has their individual thing, but as a whole, like, all of it is interrelated. And I just feel like I was that champion for my mom for so many years, for being that person of just like taking it on. And now I just feel really excited that 20 years into my acting, I've had incredible experiences that are selfish and awesome and personal and private. I won't tell you any of the dirt. Because I got stories. But also along the way, I've done some really, awesome things with great organizations. And it's like, now it's time to take it to the next level.
So you were but you were with Eve in the Congo, and that inspired some work that you're doing in fashion.
Studio 189, yeah.
Yeah, will you tell us more about that? I don't know if everybody knows about that.
Well, Studio 189, I just launched with my partner, Brima. She's actually back in Ghana right now. We were both friends from New York. She's a smart one. She went to like business school and speaks like French and Italian.
Yeah, you're not
I speak
smart
like
at all.
Spanglish. I speak like
Come
Ebonics.
on.
No, I'm saying, but for real though. When we go out there and she'd be like, oh, I'm like, isn't that awesome? You make me look so good. Get me some French fries. She comes from a fashion background, so she worked for Bottega Veneta for 10 years, Hermes, and she came with me to the Congo. Her family is Ghanaian and Ivorian, but she's half that and half American. And we just grew up knowing and loving and caring about each other since we were teenagers and watching us and our journeys. And when she came to the Congo with me, we met these other people along on their journeys doing work that we were really inspired by and moved by. And we said we could amplify this if we worked together. And this is the first time I'm doing a venture for social impact that's a for-profit business.
Great.
We're not making any money right now, but eventually we will. That's the issue with startups. Yeah. We just turned 2. We launched it on Valentine's Day in honor of 1 Billion Rising. We named the collection Fashion Rising Collection. Our company, though, and the brand is called Studio 189 because it's a collective. And we are doing partnerships from Brazil all around the world, but eventually just really hoping to have a real placement in Africa, being able to sell beautiful, handcrafted, artisanal goods within Africa and around the world, and hopefully being a part of changing the idea that something made in Africa isn't of quality or value. Because unfortunately, so often the value coming from Africa is added outside of it. So the cotton and the people and the coal and the tungsten and the tin and the everything that comes out of it, then the value is added someplace else. Now that gold has become a chain over here and is now sold. And people making African-inspired goods all the time. So people are willing to buy a Louis Vuitton, beautiful Maasai collection dress, but no Africans actually benefited from that. And so we're trying to transform that. The median age in Africa is 18.6. It's the birth of our civilization. If we were to get 3% of the GDP, which is what that is in UK, so it's possible, and UK doesn't even make that much when you think of it. And so for fashion, if it's 3% of their GDP there, if we were to translate that to Sub-Saharan Africa, that'd be more than the aid that they're receiving, and they'd be working. And that's the thing that we constantly see all the time when I've been going for many years in Africa and Haiti and all around the world, and people aren't going like this. They're taught that, like kids, they're taught that. But what they want is this. they want it
They
so
want respect.
bad.
Yeah.
They want to work, and there's no doubt. I like working. Like it's this idea. Like I'm sure. I mean, there's plenty of you will be like, but at the end of the day, truly, if I were to say, really, who really loves to work? There's something really meaningful when you earn something and you work for it, and the pride that you have in that, and that's just been something that I've really enjoyed in many ways with the organizations that I've worked with, but it's so hard when the one part that you're really capable of doing is just fundraising. Yeah. And this has been something different. And it's been amazing because my friend who's there, she quit Bottega Veneta, she moved to Uganda, she's now living in Ghana with her family out there, and we're looking at, our aunties in the market there, and there's no difference between them and us except for opportunity. And my great-grandmother was a seamstress. I feel like I'm working with my roots, and I'm giving those types of people a voice and and amplifying it. And it's been amazing. And we've been supporting each other as women, going, "Oh, look at you! We're like entrepreneurs and businesswomen now in a different way." And it feels so exciting. 20 years in acting and doing all this stuff, to do something new again.
Love it.
And like push again, and that's. You can't, I say that all the time, like I'm not going to be that person who's played it safe on my tune.
Well, you've always reinvented yourself. I mean, you're constantly reinventing, right? And you're constantly challenging yourself. You're such a curious spirit. And just
nosy, curious.
No, but
I'm
getting, I just want to go through a few kind of rapid fire, and then I want to ask you one last question. Favorite character portrayed? Do you have a favorite character?
I don't.
Do you have
I
the
don't.
most fun role or the most challenging role?
Girl, come on.
That must have been hard.
Rent was ridiculous because I got to sing and dance all day. And I'll say something that was really interesting on that movie. I'm always learning something so interesting during press, but I remember every single person asked me how I had lost weight on that project.
Of course, that's what the media
It was like the
asked.
number one question I got asked over and over again. And I used to eat at Cafe Gratitude on Harrison and 20th. That doesn't exist anymore, but Harrison and 20th, the first one. And I used to eat there raw every day so I could have a lot of energy. And I could also be really thin because I was supposed to be dying. And so I told everybody that. I had to have a lot of energy, so I ate raw, and I wanted to be like fit, but and they'd go, oh. And no one would print it. I got asked by every interview I did for Rent, and still to this day for years. And they always ask me how I lost weight, and I say I ate healthily, and they go, oh. And they don't print it. Oh. If I had said I smoked cigarettes and drank like Diet Coke all day, they would have been like, yes, let's perpetuate that horrible story and myth in Hollywood out there.
Favorite film?
Favorite film? The Rocky Horror Picture Show. No, I have to say, just over the years, I haven't watched Rent in a lot of years. Kids in a lot of years. I'll watch it again this year because two of the characters, one committed suicide and one died. So I haven't watched it in a long time. But I have to say, really, Guide to Recognizing Your Saints. Loved 7 Pounds, was really special. Top 5 I really loved. I've had Chavez and Gimme Shelter and Unstoppable and 25th Hour. And I've had really great opportunities to do some really cool, interesting, weird, outrageous roles over the years. And I grew up doing it. And so I'm very attached to all of those different fractured pieces of my personality, and just grateful I've had the chance to try on so many different shoes. And I guess that's what makes sense, as you're saying, that I'm constantly reinventing myself, because I've done that for a living for so long that it feels weird not to do it. No, but it feels weird not to do it personally. It's one thing to keep trying on roles and then go back to myself, but what is myself? And I feel like that's what's kind of happened over the years, is I've come back to myself and then just been like, well, what is myself doing besides espousing other people's characters and words, I needed to do something else.
Well, okay, so maybe that's a great way to kind of close. And I don't know if you can throw in a little Voto Latino in here, just because we're in California, and I feel like I'm so in awe and impressed with everything you've done, all of the charities and causes and projects and initiatives. But what do you want your legacy to be? You're so young, and to be thinking about legacy.
Thank you for appreciating the look of horror that just came across my face.
But seriously, no, but I mean, do you think about...
an award with Harry Belafonte, who's just turned 88. And I think he's finally just going, okay, my legacy.
No, but seriously, I mean, you already have an incredible legacy. You've done more than most people in this short life of yours. You've done so much.
That stresses me out, man. Don't talk about that too much. I feel like my plane's going to go down. You know how they always say that? Like somebody dies young and they're like, but they lived a lot of life. It's like they knew. It's like they knew. They just lived it all up front. Makes me
But
stressed.
do you think about that, or do you just go, I want to do this? So, yeah.
I do feel like, you know, for me right now, I mean, I'm always going to act. You didn't know I was joking earlier, right, when I said I was retiring? Okay, good. No, I'm always going to act. I love it. I just finished seeing Cicely Tyson, you know, and doing a trip to Bountiful twice. And this woman was 90 and never missed a show and is absolutely amazing and lucid and incredible. And it just makes me feel so grateful that I have a job, despite what they say in the press. Even as I wrinkle in age, I will actually still be able to do what I do. I love it. And that's not to be said for every, you know, career choice. So I'm so grateful for that. And I know it's going to be there. And I think I just am ready to kind of take something else on. And so for me, Studio 189 is really important. You know, you can't plan Ebola into your business plan to start a company in West Africa, and then all of a sudden Ebola strikes is like, okay. So this is exactly the reason why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing, because if you are selling your goods in your market and no one is going to the market because they're afraid of getting a disease, then you are starving. And so it's really important that we do what we're doing and sell what you have that you're making there over here, and give you that access, you know, that most of us are tapping into. You know, people have a cell phone now, they're able to start a business, you know, and it's just giving that technological boost, that opportunity to people who are they're already doing great things, they're already making beautiful things, but how can we leverage that in a better way? So for me, I'm all about that. I'm even more engaged in that now, especially because of the situation on the ground, and it was necessary before we started. It's even that much more so. And the All of Us Foundation, I just started that, but for me that gets me really excited, because specifically what we want to do is help organizations work collaboratively with each other. I think too often we see a lot of these organizations, they're fighting for the same little piece of money,
right,
and they're undermining each other, and both of those causes are important. You need to stop child sex trafficking, and you need to do something about that dam, and you need to do something about those trees, and you need to do something about the adult literacy. So why are you all fighting for that same little pool of money and undermining each other? Like, it's horrible to see that. And there's a way to manifest something different and have the monies that do get raised actually go through all of your organizations and be that much more empowering. So that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm really, the education that I've had of being able to work with such remarkable people like yourself, and the things that you're doing on so many different levels, if we can start connecting those dots for people, so they're not reinventing the wheel, they're not having to jump through so many hoops to raise funds. If I can tap into resources and fundings and give people an experience that's good for giving and doing, then that's my legacy that I'd like to leave, that we're capable of participating and playing that game. So. Oh my God, I love you guys. I just shrink you and just keep you in my bucket. When I'm feeling down, just be like, yo, what's up?
We're so fortunate to have you, such an incredible, fearless woman. I've always admired you, and I think every moment I spend with you, I admire you even more. Thank you for inspiring all of us. I think we all probably learned a lot today. Thank you, Rosario, for being you.
Thank you. And thank you. This is awesome. I really appreciate it. And then just be nerdy again, just because I have to, because I really want to. I love whoever wrote my name on this award. It's kind of like, it's kind of ghetto. It's kind of awesome. It's like Sharpied in, like kind of like Rosario, like that. I really love it. And so it's making me think, because of the whole, I keep saying like Bizarro and Shazam, but like, this is making me think of TLC, because I'm a big Elvis fan. And Elvis one night stayed up until all hours of the wee morning designing an emblem for him and his boys. And he made the Shazam because he liked comics. He made the Shazam Thunderbolt, Lightning Bolt. And then he wrote TLC for Tender Love and Care for him and his crew, and had his jeweler in the middle of the night, woke him up in the middle of the night because he was Elvis. And we slept 4 hours a night and he was, Elvis, and he could do that. Had it made, and all his boys would rock TLC. And this is what I'm going to think of every time I'm Tender Love and Care. I'm going to do the... when I see it at home. I love it.
Well, you are
you.
so deserving. Thank you, everyone, for being here. What a rock star.
You can ask a question? You want it?
Do you want a question?
El muchacho, the young man that wrote your name on it, his name is Tio Mendoza.
Oh, yeah?
Tio Mendoza wrote his...
Awesome.
Oh,
That's
that's
awesome.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yesterday at the Nobel Awards, they had the Children's Hospital participate, and all of the awards were done by the different children, which was really cool. And
That's
the
beautiful.
award that I had was done bronze like this, and they had sketched in brick on the sides.
Ooh.
And then they made an Eiffel Tower in the front, and it was very, I asked the girl, her name was Elizabeth, the little girl. So thank you for telling me. I'm sorry, what his name was, you said? Theo.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, who made it yesterday, I was like, rent? She was like, yeah. It's like bricks and like La Vie Boheme. I was like, oh, okay. I love that. Thank you. I like knowing behind it.
Anything else that you, obviously.
Oh, are we doing a Q&A?
I know, well, we're not doing a Q&A, but
Oh,
if there's
sorry.
no, because we could keep talking. No one's harassing me to make one more. Here, let's ask a few questions. Let's have a question right here.
Sorry,
What's the question?
Okay.
To the back of the car. It was so scary for us. We saw it at midnight, and 3 a.m., she's going to fly off.
Estrés.
What was it like being in the car?
Super fun and exciting and awesome. And she's a nut job, so she was super down. And I remember when we were filming, we waited to do all of those shots until the very end for insurance reasons. So in case she died, we had all the other scenes, and we could technically just hire someone else to do the car stunts. Isn't that horrible? Totally morbid, but when you're working, you gotta make sure insurance is important. And I just would never forget how crazy that was. It was it's so macabre. And then it was interesting because she's so used to doing stunt stuff, and it's so dangerous, but she's used to doing that and then hiding her face. That was the biggest problem, because we'd have the insurance people, we'd leave and we'd go 15 miles per hour. And then we'd step on the gas and we'd get the shot, really, because technically we weren't only supposed to go, I think the fastest was 20 or 25 miles per hour, but that wasn't even gonna get her hair going. So we were step on it. We're professionals here, it's fine. But I'll just never forget having Quentin over and over and over again scream from the other car, show your face, because she'd be doing this amazing stuff that would make our hearts jump out of our chest, and then you wouldn't see her face to show that it was her doing it. And he's like, that's the whole point of casting you as the actress and the stunt woman, so we could see that you are actually that badass.
Oh my
It's pretty
gosh.
amazing. She's awesome.
Well,
No, we're talking about Zoe Bell right now, girl.
Yeah.
Respect.
okay, so one last question, and then I know there's a film here shortly. So.
Oh, right.
Yes, please.
Was it that you knew that you could keep up with the, I don't want to say bigger name actors and actresses, but
I got this. Drop the mic.
when I first saw you leave that game and how you steal the show from Denzel and the other actors, which movie was it that you knew, I got this? Because you kept up with some really big men.
Yeah.
And other actors in the movie. What movie was it for you when you were I got this movie?
Thank
That's a good question.
That's very cool. I remember specifically what was interesting about He Got Game. I auditioned for that movie when I was 17, and I auditioned for it 8 or 9 times before I got the part. And I read with all these different basketball actors like basketball stars, like Allen Iverson and stuff like that. It was in my senior year of high school. It was super exciting. I was like, yo, guess who I met today? And they'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, yo, I'm about to do a movie with Spike Lee. And like, Denzel Washington, yo, they cast me out and it's really dope. They're like, yeah. I'm like, and a year later the movie comes out and everyone's like, oh my God, you're in a movie with Denzel. I'm like, I tried telling you that a year ago when you could come to the set and it meant something. It doesn't matter now. You can watch it on screen with everybody else. What's wrong with you? But I'll never forget on that project, it was really amazing because Spike is a very interesting character. You know, I'm there, and he had seen Kids, which is why he had me come in. And I got the role, and he's like, Ray's never acted before. You have to help him. And I'm like, I'm 18. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is Denzel. Tell him to shadow Denzel. And he'd go, no, you have to help him out. And I remember Spike's whole thing is he's very, I know this might seem surprising, but he does have a big ego. I know it's shocking, right? But he does have a big ego. And he had this thing about, if I've cast you to be in my movie, then it's because you're the right person to be in my movie. So now go and be that right person in my movie because I don't make mistakes. So do your job. Which was like super stressful because I'm like, you know, I'm hoping to have under my wing, I'm hoping to be under Denzel's wing or something. No, instead I'm being told, yo, help Ray. And I'll never forget that. I started acting at 15, and I just kept waiting. Kids came out, and then I got an agent, and I just kind of kept going along, and I kept waiting for that Apollo hook to come off stage and yank me off and be like, yo, get a real job. This chick from Juilliard who's like been training since she was an infant, she's really gonna do this. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I just kept waiting for that to happen, and it never did. And then I remember when I auditioned, I read the script for 7 Pounds. And it's very infrequently that you get a script like that. And I remember I cried to my mom. I was like, I have to get this role. This is my, like, Emily poses me. I love her. And I've only felt that a few times, like Mimi was one of those, but there was a few times where it was like, I don't care if I have to cry ugly face in this audition, like, I'm going there. I want this. And I had to wrestle with the reality and the fact that I had a hard time calling myself an actor because of the way I'd come into the industry. And I grew up around artists who were starving artists who never got to realize their work. So for me, it felt like I got lucky. I found a natural talent. I'm a workaholic, and I have a strong work ethic, and I've been able to run with this opportunity. But Tracy, who went to Juilliard, she's an actress. I get to act. But I remember with 7 Pounds, it was, this is special. Yeah. This is gonna, I feel like I need to rise to the occasion as this, and I need to be a better actor in order to realize this character, which means I have to admit to myself that I actually am one. So that was actually the film where I was like, okay, Rosario, just deal with this. This is what and it's the difference, it's hard, it's really terrible, because so often you meet people like, I'm an actress, and you're like, well, how do you pay your bills? And like, well, I wait tables. Okay, so then you're a waiter and you're aspiring to be an actor. It's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to be mean, but you are a waiter, and then, and then you're aspiring to be an actor. But I started acting at 15. So I remember when I did Clerks 2, and they were like, so tell us about all the crappy jobs that you had to do in order to get here. And I'm like, I babysat and tutored, and then I acted. And they're like, fuck you. Like, we had to wait tables, we had to do this and that. I used to pick up garbage, I'm like, I started really young, I was really lucky. But I remember this girl I went to elementary school with, she had Desiree Schlee, but do you know her? No. She does sign language. Isn't that cool? That's what she does for a living. Anyway, so Desiree Schlee, I remember I bumped into her, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and she said, wow, that's so cool, Rosario. I remember that summer when you got picked into being an actor in Kids and stuff. And this was right around the time, this is before 7 Pounds. This is when I was wrestling with this whole, like, I'm not an actor. So it just felt really weird calling myself an actor. When you're around someone like Spike Lee and people who've been like dreaming of it their whole lives, I just felt lucky to be there. But I remember her going, Rosario, like, it wasn't just like some accident that this happened. Like, if someone had come up to me, she says, from the very beginning, you've had ownership over your life, of your whole career, of this whole thing. It wasn't just an accident. If someone had come up to me on the street and said, hey, do you want to be in the movie? I would have said no. You said yes. You said yes to the very first thing, and it wasn't an offer for the role. You had to audition for it. So she was so confused because we had this really deep conversation of just being like, I feel like a fraud, and at some point, like, it stresses me out. Like, I really should have gone to college because this is probably never going to keep going, and I just grew up around a bunch of artists, and it's just not going to go well, and I want to take care of my family. And she was just like, whoa, like, you're an actor, Rosario, and you're a very good actor, actually. And she's like, and you should own that, because literally, had someone asked me to be in a movie, I would have said, no, get away from me, you weird, creepy man. Stop talking to me. Like a bubble. And so that was the beginning of that. I remember, so when I got 7 pounds, immediately that conversation came to my head, and it was very visceral. It was very present, very real. It was one of those, like, actual talking tos to myself that I had to have of so many years of being in this industry and just wanting, and I think maybe that's a woman thing or a pleasing thing or whatever it is, and having to feel humble and not wanting to really express what I really wanted. But ultimately, what I really wanted in that moment was to do a great job for Emily Posa, which means I had to show up and I had to take on who I was, even if that made me uncomfortable. And that was a good moment. That was a great question.
Rosario Dawson, our not just actor, but Maverick. We love you. I love you so much. We're going to get something to eat.